The teaser for the forthcoming documentary, Becoming Frederick Douglass, courtesy of Maryland Public Television. That's coming out in the fall, as well as a documentary on Harriet Tubman. Stanley Nelson, we have just 30 seconds. Your career spanned more than 30 years, more than 30 amazing documentaries. How does it feel to be nominated for your first Oscar?
It feels great. It feels great. I think, one of the things that's so wonderful about it is that more people will see Attica, and for some people, the fact that we're nominated, is validation and a reason to see Attica. And that's what we want. I think that.
Well, it is long overdue. Thank you so much, Stanley Nelson. That does it for our show. A very happy birthday to Neil Shibata. I'm Amy Goodman. Please stay safe.
You're listening to KGUA 88.3 Wallala.
And good morning, everybody. Peggy Berryhill here at KGUA in the studios at Cypress Village in downtown Gualala on this beautiful Friday and the fourth Friday of the month. On the fourth Friday, on every Friday of February. Let me get my thoughts together here. This special month, we are working with Aaron Gaffel and Tom Birmingham for a special series on Peggy's Place called Awaken, the Artist Within. And we're doing something very special. Not only are we bringing it to you on the radio, we're also on our KGUA YouTube channel. So you can watch the art as it's being created and participate. And you can be an artist, any type, any level, or just a viewer like me. It's been such a wonderful Friday. We really look forward to it because Aaron Gaffel is so inspiring and making us all understand we can each be an artist ourselves. So I don't have any major announcements today. We had a great show earlier this week with Aaron Corrado and the Mendocino County Public Health Department on emergency preparedness. I hope that's on SoundCloud soon and you get to check it out on SoundCloud. We also put Aaron Gaffel's work on our SoundCloud. And of course, those who are watching at YouTube Live, we've already got 28 participants so far. Last week, we had a great show and we had a caller who called us from Alexandria, Egypt. That was amazing. A mother and her daughter who were participating in Aaron's work. So Aaron, I'm going to open the floor up to you. And I see we have a PowerPoint ready to go. And
you want me to turn around so you can see it?
All right. Now we see your your pen and some paper with a bunch of
Great. Well, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me back. So great to be here again. I'm really delighted. Just for people who aren't familiar, we're doing the Sea Ranch Lodge up in the Sea Ranch, Sonoma, has on the Sonoma coast, has invited me and Tom to be artists in residence for the month of February. And while we're here, we are embarking on creating brand new work for an exhibition in the summer at the Morris Graves Art Museum of Art in Eureka. And every Friday, we're doing these creativity programs with Peggy that are really about creativity, about dropping into human ability, capacity, and need to generate information out of our bodies onto the page, whether it's through gardening or making a meal or painting or making music, writing a poem. And it's a real honor to be invited to share with you all the information that I've been so lucky to have been taught my whole life from my earliest memories. My uncle Cave Fassett, for the textile artists out there, was a model to me of working creatively in many mediums, from knitting to painting to telling stories. So today we're going to do something really fun that's going to require zero skill and zero talent. And we call it the cosmic doodle. And I see some faces out there of old friends. Hi, Lisa. So nice to see you all here joining us. And we're always beginning at the same place. We're always beginning at the beginning. There's nowhere else to begin. So I'm gonna just turn the page to a fresh page. And Peggy, do you have any questions before I launch into the doodle? Okay, we're gonna just begin then. And the doodle is really about the simplest and easiest way and that I can think of, where you really start with bare minimum materials and you don't give yourself very much time. And that's really important. I'm gonna give myself, less than 30 seconds to take I'm using something that has a strong read. You could use a crayon, you could use a Posca pen, you could use a pencil, but I'm going to use something that's really dark because I want it to read on the radio. So I've got a notebook in front of me. I've got a magic marker, a Sharpie, and it won't melt in the color in the water. And I'm just going to begin and make a doodle that kind of crosses all sides of the paper. I'm going up and off and around. I want this line to have life. I don't want it to be trying to describe something. And that's it. I did it. I finished it. It's not a painting of a cat. It's not a portrait of a barn. It's not trying to be accurate. It's just a doodle. It's a squiggle. And because I'm working quickly, I don't have time for my inner critic to jump in and tell me, what's that? What the hell are you doing? That's nothing to look at. So I like the speed aspect for this because it really prevents me from trying to make something intentional. And the point of that really is that now, when I go into this next phase of the cosmic doodle, I do not have a thing I'm trying to convey. I'm just on a journey of discovery. I want to discover what I made. I don't really know yet. So I'm going to dip my brush into some water. And I have a couple of different brushes that are available to me. And I have a child's watercolor kit. I'm going to just rearrange the furniture a little bit so you can see the colors. This is just for the people who are not watching and just listening. What I have is one of those long first grade praying kits that has yellow, red, and blue, orange, purple, and brown, and black. And I'm just going to dip into my first color with my brush. And I'm making sure that I have a lot of water on my brush. And I'm just gently coaxing color out of the color in the watercolor kit. So one of the things about watercolor is you need to have enough water and you need to have enough color. If you just take your brush, get it wet, and touch the cake of color, and then lay down a stroke of color, you may not have very much. It may look kind of sad and weak. So
Erin, while you're doing that, I just want to let our listeners know that this is showing up really well on the radio, but it's better on YouTube if you go to the YouTube channel and see how Erin is filling in this doodle that she's done. It's just already it's taking life out of just a doodle, a bunch of squiggles, a bunch of spaghetti thrown on the wall, and now she's filling it in. This is KGUA in Wallala 88.3 FM. I'm Peggy Berryhill, Tom Birmingham, the master behind the screen. And Erin, I like that green.
Thank you. This is KGUA green. Well, it's my version of it.
It's close.
It's trying to pick. Oops, you see that little accident there, that little dot? Now, that is a perfect dot. I could never have painted something so perfect as that. It's perfectly circular and round, and I'm leaving it alone, and I'm going to let it dry. So I'm continuing on to just go around, and I don't want to use the phrase thoughtlessly because that sounds very negative. You know, how thoughtless you were when you said that awful thing. But thoughtless in the sense that I'm not trying. It's making without trying. It's making without striving. It's making without comparing. There's no reality other than the reality I'm making right now that I'm falling short of or attempting to copy. And if you've ever gone out into nature with your paint kit in hand to try to paint a barn against a fence line, against the ocean, against the coastline, you may find yourself trying to copy what you see and feeling like you really can't do it, feeling like you've fallen short. And when you're working with the doodle, there's no falling short because it is completely new creation, and it's partly you, and it's a partly what happened that you're responding to. And for example, I never start with the color green, very rarely, but today green feels like the color of peace and the color of life and the color of KGUA. And I never really, I have to say, I never noticed that until this morning when I saw Peggy come on the screen, and the surrounding color around the KGUA banner was green. And I thought, I never noticed that really. And I think that may have led me to using green, but I don't know because I wasn't really thinking about it. It just seemed like the right color. So I'm allowing myself to be influenced by whatever I'm observing or feeling or remembering or thinking.
To Erin, while you're filling in this particular spot, I just want to say for those viewers who can see the KGUA logo, it was originally a pomo basket by the artist Eric Wilder, and his aunt and grandmothers were very famous pomo basket makers. And so it was originally, the design colors were in red and golden and black, and the outside the circle are quail top knots. And, we wanted to echo our environment here at KGUA and share the pomo artistry. And then we went to the simple colors of black and teal, also kind of native colors. Oh, I like what you're doing here. Somehow it makes me think of a mid-century modern design.
That's so great. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't pretend to know where it comes from or why it comes out the way it does. And I've noticed when I'm working with a group and I can see what they're doing, and I'm hoping out there in Zoom land, wherever you are, whether you're in Germany or Egypt or California or Australia, that you are making a doodle along with me. But I really find that I have no idea where the color combinations arise from that I end up using. And I look at what others are doing, and I'm astonished by what emerges from other efforts. And I don't know what they mean, but I find them to be so delightful and surprising. And we can all do this together. We also have a activity called the Distracted Doodle, and that engages you in picking up the phone and calling a friend. In my instructions for today, I said, why don't you pick up the phone and call a friend? And you can do this together while you're talking to each other. I mean, I'm doing a distracted doodle right now because I'm not sitting here in any way really having time even to think about what I'm doing because I'm talking to Peggy. So I can't really like focus on like, what's my next color choice going to be? I have to be allowing the process to happen the way it's happening. And the color almost seems to choose itself. And when I'm painting, I usually work with oil paints, and I'm working on these big 6 foot by 8 foot canvases right now. When I'm really happily painting, I'm not really aware of choosing. I just feel like I'm following something that is guiding me. And when I become very aware that I have to make a choice and I get kind of stopped in the choosing, I usually have to stop painting, because it's usually a moment when I have to step away and wait for the ease to return.
It's
So
very much like writing, if you really get hung up in, like you say, in a particular, I don't know, style or genre that sort of changes, you need to step away and come back to where you want to be, that casual. I mean, writing is not casual, nor is painting, but there is that, I don't know, I'm trying to say that freedom to let your brain create.
yeah, it's the freedom to allow the creation to happen. And I feel that there is an ease. The poet Rumi describes stepping into a river of joy. And when I'm working well, I feel like I've stepped into a river of joy, and that this river exists all the time, and that I have simply to find the way back into the river. And when I'm in that space, that river or that flow, it is easy. And the work, the hardship and the work in writing or painting or creating something new is finding your way back into that space that is the easeful space. I think most of the work happens in preparing to get to that space. And then there you are. If you're lucky, you get there. And if you're really lucky, you get to stay there for a while.
Can you talk for a moment about preparation? You just mentioned it, what role that plays.
Yeah, I will. Preparation, I think, is really how you live your life to be available for the spirit to come through you. And the way that I prepare is often by how I structure my day. Tom and I used to go for a long walk every morning before the day began, really. Sometimes we would actually be out before the sun had risen, and we would walk for 3 miles and have all kinds of things to sort out before we got home. And by the time we got home, it would feel like we sort of managed to figure out what we needed to do and how our day was going to proceed. And then I could enter into the work of the day with a sense of connection with the earth. That's one of the things the walk gives you, is access to this much greater wisdom than we individually have, being out in nature, and the sky and the earth and the water. They're all speaking to you, even if you're not consciously listening. The second thing I do to prepare for painting, that has been a really strong ritual or habit for me, has been working in writing, doing 10 minutes of just free form writing before I begin. And for many years, that was a kind of an unbreakable rule, that I would always do 10 minutes of just unedited freestyle, kind of like morning pages, but just 10 minutes. And that would allow me to kind of feel like I was anchored, and I would discover in the writing something that I didn't even know I was thinking. And then here I am right now, I'm just filling these doodles with colors. I've got orange flooding into this kind of half moon shape, and it's kind of speaking across the field to the blue and the green and the yellow. And all of these colors are almost like stained glass pieces set into a framework of black lines. And the preparation of the materials themselves is part of how I prepare psychologically to be available to that invitation to step into the river of joy. Gathering materials, preparing the paints. You don't just sit down and pick up a paintbrush and dip it into a color. And, with watercolor, you really have to activate the color. You have to rub the brush with water against the surface of the color. You have to keep adding water. You have to keep responding to the color. And then there's a moment when it's ready and you're ready at the same time. So there's a lot of patience and giving yourself the space and the materials to play.
I think that's great advice for whatever medium you choose, or just living, those morning walks, that quiet time. And, we do another show here at KGUA on Mondays, and your show on Friday and the Monday show are two of the most popular pieces of Peggy's Place, and it's a free write show. You were talking about free writing. We do a prompt and we ask our writers to respond with a 10-minute free write. And it's an awesome program. And where people go with that 10-minute free write, of course, surprises them. And we have writers also from all over the world who join us in just taking those 10 minutes to free write.
It's wonderful. And I just love that you do that. That's a wonderful offering to the community, and to have a group of people you're writing with and sharing your stories with is such a, it's that community that we also seek, especially in the last few years, this sense of being separate from one another, but really needing one another more than ever, to be able to come together around a creative practice and to have that support is a beautiful thing. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you're offering that, Peggy, in this community.
Well,
It's really a good
weekends
thing.
with the writers and you this month. And it's interesting seeing some of your participants who clearly are also painting along with you, and some are just listening and thinking about some of this, and engaging their brain in other ways. I look forward to hearing from them as the program goes on. And your art is just coming alive from this blank piece of paper to a squiggly line, and you're filling it in. It's really fun to see. For those on the radio who or maybe strictly on the radio, Erin simply took a white page and a felt tip marker and just made all these lines, like I said, kind of like throwing spaghetti on the wall. And then she's filling it in gently with this very simple colors from a child's paint kit, and turning it into this work of fun, bright, creative colors and art.
Mhm. Nice description, Peggy. Yeah, and so there is a little bit of sort of it looks very lighthearted. It is very lighthearted. I can't do this without just feeling very happy and joyful and at ease. And at the same time, as I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall and then filling in those shapes with colors, I am learning technique. I'm learning how much water a color needs and which brush. I'm using a really fat brush right now, so it doesn't have a really fine tip. And this is the kind of brush that you can actually disassemble and put into a little container. Oh, here's another brush. This has a sharper point. So if I really wanted to get into a smaller space, this would be a better brush to use for that. So I just have a couple of options. But the other thing that I'm learning about, which is really critical, there's sort of 4 critical things with watercolor. There's the water, the color, the paper, and the time. And that time is often the thing that people forget is actually an ingredient. It's like my mother always says about baking, that air is an ingredient. So, she says, it's better to have your, when you're beating up your batter, that air going in there, the aerating the eggs is what is going to give you this loft, this lift. So those kinds of little things that a master baker knows. Well, as a painter, learning how time is actually an element in your work is critical. And as much as we sort of rush the beginning, you know, we do this not hasty, but speedy approach to lay down all that spaghetti to get that all on the page. As we move into the coloring and bringing those color elements in, the pace slows down, because what begins to happen is this art piece begins to emerge, and it begins to have a feeling, and you start noticing, oh, this connects with that. And is that like an animal? Am I seeing some kind of a creature emerge? Is that a message? That little dot of green arrived, that seems important. Maybe that's an eye. And then technically, I'm looking at all these places where the color is sinking into the paper, but it hasn't completely sunk in and dried yet. And I'm actually loving that. I'm loving the depth of the blues, where it moves from sort of a medium tone into a really rich lapis lazuli blue, that movement from light to dark. And I'm going to actually take my tissue paper and go into a couple of these spaces and accentuate the movement by lifting away some of the color to make it a little bit lighter towards the edges. So there's a sense of movement in each shape, from the light blue to that mid-tone blue to that deepest, darkest blue. And just by taking my tissue paper and carefully dabbing it in certain places, I'm lifting off some of that pigment, and that pigment comes off and gets into my tissue paper. So I have to be careful not to now put it where it shouldn't go. But what it means is that even in the process of doing something this effortless, I start getting information back from the piece itself that suggests that that addition of movement might be interesting to play with, moving light into dark, allowing that movement within each form. I didn't go into it thinking about that, and I didn't plan that, but as I look at the paper, receiving the water and the color, I think, oh, that might be a really beautiful thing to play around with. So in creating volume with paint, you are often trying to move color from a light aspect into a middle tone, into a dark tone. That three-dimensional movement of light across a form is what gives something that sense of dimensionality and physicality. So even in something flat, where we're working with spaghetti thrown on a page and just dropping in these bright jewel tones, there is that potential to add another element by removing the paint with just a piece of tissue paper.
I see some of your participants working hard, concentrating, faces down, doing things on their paper. I saw a smile just now from one of your participants.
Oh, yes. I have wonderful friends all over the world who join me with these wonderful sessions. And it's funny because we often want to come up with something brand new and different. And yet there's some tried and true methods. If you want a tried and true method to lighten up, get out of, being in a funk. Because really, one of the things that happens when you start doing the cosmic doodle is you start playing with beautiful color and bright color. Usually we're working with something like a watercolor kit, but you could be working with Posca pens, or you could be working with crayons. You could be working with just regular old markers. But when you begin to just explore through making an art piece, and this is one of the simplest ways you can do that, you're working with red and the energy of red and yellow and the vibrancy and the happiness of yellow. And you're working with rounded shapes. Often rounded shapes just pop up because we sort of tend to do that sort of spiraling and curling with the lines, and the depths of blues. And all of these colors are like medicine. They're like you pick up a color and put it on a piece of paper, and then it gives you this thing back, this feeling back that is like a lifting, energizing feeling. And it's not weighted down with the mental burden of trying so hard as we often do, to make something happen. And this exercise also has another thing. In this particular iteration that I'm working on right now, you'll notice that I haven't put any new paint down for about 5 minutes. And as I was talking about this element of time, which is so important, there's another aspect also, which this is illustrating, which is the spaces between the colors that I'm not adding color to. I'm leaving a lot of space in this doodle to be simply air, simply the white of the paper. And there's a technical reason for that, which is that I don't want to go up against some of these wet shapes with more watercolor, because that has the risk of one color leaping across and entering the other. Water will always want to join water. So if you put a water shape next to another water shape, they will become one shape. And everything right now is kind of hovering in that drying space. But the second thing is, in a way, I think the white spaces are kind of like rests. It's like you're singing a song. And in that melody, there needs to be a moment or moments when there is no sound. You need that quiet, that pause. In this doodle, there's so much going on. It's a circus, it's a riot of color, but it is also balanced by as much space, as much rest, as activity. And I really feel quite drawn to leaving it at this time in this way and not adding something into this to fill in every single shape, which is how in the demo I videotaped, I did fill in every single shape. But even then I was thinking, well, I wonder if I should leave some of these spaces empty. And there is a kind of a connection between this decision and what I've been learning up here while I've been staying at the Sea Ranch. I've had a tendency to want to fill every hour with something, creative or productive. And last week, Lou Linden of Linden Design Gallery suggested maybe you might need a little rest in all of this activity. And that was really what I needed to give myself.
I have to break in for just a moment to remind our listeners you're listening to KGUA in Gualala 88.3 FM, and this is Peggy's Place, this special February Friday edition with Aaron Lee Gaffel, our artist from Big Sur, and Tom Birmingham in the background. And all of these people, there's about 40 people plus participating in what Aaron is doing. And so now, Aaron, I have to say you're what I first called also just mid-century modern now looks like a Calder mobile. If you've seen any of those giant steel mobiles that take up a lot of space, it now kind of looks like that. Anyway, thank you for listening. And I think Lou is always wise about, that's good to guide you to sit back a little bit and enjoy also your surroundings, because it's just been gorgeous. You brought great weather here.
Well, we all are praying for rain, and yet grateful that when we go out to paint, it's not raining. It does look like a Calder, and that's actually an interesting viewpoint, because for those of our audience who aren't familiar with Alexander Calder's mobiles, you're often looking at them suspended in air by wires or connected to each other in such a way that they can move. And so much of the experience of those art pieces is the space, the air, and what you're looking at them across or through. So emptiness is essential for their ability to move and relate to one another. Imagine a mobile hanging from above a child's bed, and how it moves and light passes through it. And I think that the big message I was getting, thank you for that, posting that mobile. Is that you, Tom? Pope, that's awesome. So there's all of this decision making of shapes and proportion, and then there's emptiness. Without the emptiness, it would be meaningless.
Oh, I love that concept. You don't think of it, and I thinking of the Calder at one of the Smithsonian art museums that's huge. You know, it's just huge. And the wires that are holding it are cables, these steel cables. And yet there's this delicate dance that's going on in the empty space.
In the empty
For
space.
that.
Absolutely. And you don't necessarily think of that.
No.
But when you see his work, for sure, you get that. So I think I will let my mobile, and I wasn't inspired by his mobile, but as I've arrived at this point, I think, well, let's let this be sort of an homage to Calder, and let it settle in and dry. And I'm going to invite people who are joining in today to share with us their questions, share with us their work. And I want to just remind people about how it works with Zoom. There on the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see, I believe it's under the reactions icon, which is like a little smiling face with a plus over its head. When you click that, you'll see thumbs up, hearts, crying, laughing, celebration, and most importantly, raise hand. So if you would like to join in, please push the raise hand button and Tom will bring you into the conversation. Hi, is that Amina?
Yes, hi. Thank
Hi.
you for this. This is really fun.
Oh, thank you for joining.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm an artist, and I'm working with my little 4-year-old grandson. And it's interesting, coincidentally, yesterday I was doing this exercise with him, and it was absolutely spontaneous, not planned. He's really interested in drawing, so I'm sitting there with him, just going where he wants to go. What I was noticing is that when he scribbles, it's very rigid, back and forth, sharp edges. Um, and, I'm noticing how pleasant this fluid feeling is in my scribble drawing. And I don't want to influence him necessarily, but I'm just so curious about what it is that makes a person prompts a person to, go in a certain direction with how they lay lines down.
Yeah.
He has a lot of tension, so of course I'm thinking maybe this is that showing up. I just wondered if you had a thought about that.
Well, it makes me think of when I was painting in 2016 in Big Sur, which is where I live. We had a really devastating forest fire that went on for months and months and months. And we all of us Californians are very familiar with the anxiety and tension and fear that comes with our fires. And that was a very acute period of prolonged anxiety. It wasn't just one event, one stressor. It was every day, 24 hours a day, for months and months. And I painted and painted and painted, and I painted things that were so full of anxiety. They were hot, they were wild, there were lines clashing and moving. They had very little harmony. And yet I just kept making them. They weren't pleasing for me to look at, but I felt the need to create them. And months went by, and finally the fire was completely contained. And one day I just walked into my studio and I just looked at all of these pieces and I said, you've served your purpose. I don't need to live with you anymore, but I needed to create you. And I took each painting one by one and went from one end of the room to the other and repaint, and over a period of time, and painted over every single painting. And all of those paintings became very atmospheric harmonies of cooling,
Oh, wow.
bringing it down. And what was really fascinating was then it started raining, and it started raining and raining and raining so much that the roads slid away because of the mud and the rocks. And the next thing you know, for the next 10 months, we were cut off north and south, and I couldn't get back to my studio. So it was a need to create, and the way I created and that anxiety was different from how I wanted to create or felt soothed by, but it had to come through So when you're working with children, I always have felt that you allow for their expression to be what it is. And there you are expressing yourself in the way you are. And of course they are influenced by it. But I think what can be destructive is when you're telling a child not to express in the way that they want to.
Right.
And I've seen that happen with little boys more than with little girls, where a little boy is maybe drawing something that often a mom finds very objectionable, like bombs dropping out of the sky onto, with murals I do with kids, we always have this conversation. And, it's part of their expression and their vision and their release and their ideation. And I encourage it to come out into the safe place, which is this canvas, this piece of paper. And I think it does express what's going on inside in its own language.
Yeah. I don't want to thank you. I don't want to take a lot more of your time, but I just wanted to remark that what I noticed was how much delight he took in starting to color in those little spaces. He hadn't planned for that. He hadn't thought about that. It was just this scribble. But then as he looked, he said, hey, let's color these in. And it became an entirely different experience for him.
Oh, wow. The color.
Yeah, the color. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
What colors was he using? Do you remember?
Every color.
Everything.
Yeah.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, he actually even took like 8 colored pencils at one time.
Wow.
And put them in one of the spaces because he wanted to see what that looked like.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This exercise was totally inspired by watching my daughter paint when she was a little girl. And when I started designing creativity exercises for adults, the first ideas that came to me were ideas that I had seen my kids do, or that I was teaching an adult class and they would be with me and they would be over here doing something else. And what they were doing was actually much more to the point, much more direct to get to that, creative center. I think most of the work that we do is when I'm teaching, when Tom and I are teaching, is to help people get into that space from which the creativity flows easily. And there's a discovery process and it's like, oh, what about this? What about that? And there's an idea that they have that they then feel comfortable to act through. When I worked with children years ago, the kids would show up for class and they would just ask where all the materials were to get started. Whatever the subject of that day was, they just wanted, where's the stuff? And the grownups would show up later for their class. We'd do like kids in the morning, grownups in the afternoon. And they would sit down very politely and say, what do we do? And I thought it was such a fascinating difference.
Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting for our next speaker, it just makes me think of the cartoonists I know, the grown-up men who drawing the superheroes and the battles and, creating all of those mythical stories, whether they're, in knights or whether they're, into the future. So some of those boys grew up to be those great cartoonists. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a sort of a natural evolution for how our visual storytelling evolves, and it's fascinating to observe it. I wanted to let people know that we are going to be painting together this Saturday on the Sea Ranch Lodge grounds in the Sea Ranch. And we are going to be having a guest painter, Kate Worthen, who is a dear friend of mine and a wonderful painter from Marina down in Monterey County. She'll be up at 11 a.m. doing a demo somewhere on the property, probably between the lodge and the barn below. And everyone is welcome to come and paint with us. And I know for sure that we'll have 5 painters that I know out and about painting all kinds of different ways. Some are sketching, some are watercoloring, some are doing oils.
And at 4 p.m. Saturday afternoon, we will be gathering in the cafe of the lodge and having a wet paint reception, which is kind of like, what's the catch of the day? You know, what did we get out there trying to take in all this incredible beauty? And it's really fun to see so many artists working in different processes. And I have learned so much each Saturday from the different presentations that these guest artists have offered. It's absolutely affected and changed my own sense of how to approach the landscape. And I have worked through some of my own fears about challenging subject matter. So if you're an artist in the Sea Ranch area or Walala area, you know, please come down or up and join us on Saturday. It's really a fun time. And yeah.
Guests up, you know, I see on the screen. Anybody else want to share? I thought I saw a mother and child.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, hey, welcome. I see you.
Somewhere.
Rasha.
Hi.
Hi, welcome back.
Yes.
How
thank
are you?
Fine. I just wanted to show you Maya's, she will show her piece of art. It's really nice.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's amazing. Maya?
Yeah.
Wow. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
It has a soft
We are really enjoying it very much.
to it,
Thank you
doesn't
so
it,
much.
Erin?
Rasha, did you make one also?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, wow.
Finished.
It's wonderful.
Thank you. But what I like about Maya is really, I like that it's roundish. All the lines, I don't know if you can see it. The edges are very roundish.
Yes. Yes. It's very, very sort of voluptuous, all these round movements of roundness and harmonies. And the color is very harmonious.
Yeah, I like it very much. I'm really proud of her. Glad she,
What's that?
no, I'm glad she is joining us. I'm very, yeah, she has a very artistic touch.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I mean, those collages you shared last week,
Hi, honey.
off the charts.
Wait, let me turn off my iPad. I was watching an art lecture. Our Carlos is here. He's just about ready to fill in the marble area by the entrance.
Okay, so I'm just going to suggest out there to our listening viewers, if you are not muted, please do mute yourself. And then if you would like to join in the conversation, please push the raise hand button in the reaction section on the lower edge of your screen. Thank you so much, Rasha and Maya, for sharing from Alexandria, Egypt. That's always a thrill to know somebody is participating in these from other places that are far, far away from where we are. You know, it's the world is connecting in this new way that's so incredible to me. I wanted to ask Lisa Kaufman if she could join, and then Tom will bring her in, and then Valerie Genvy after. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm better, thank you.
Oh,
We
you're
had
better. Have you
well,
not?
you know how things happen for a reason, and I mean this particular lesson today is very good for me because we unexpectedly lost our dog on Valentine's Day.
Oh, so
And
sad.
you know, anyway, and you know, life goes on. You deal with things. We have a new puppy. It's all wonderful, but my heart hurts. And I found myself kind of that coming through in what I did today, which I don't usually leave spaces, but I like the idea.
Ah, wow. Yeah. And I like how you also have the color going off the edge, like it's going beyond the scope of the paper.
Yeah.
Very, very strong.
And these different colors came to me in sort of that idea of the purple. I started with purple and I ended with yellow. So, it stepped up and again, this is a great exercise. We've done it before and I'll do it again many times. I've used it to help me with my inner work also, because again, things come out and it's just so delightful and glorious and, deep.
Yeah.
And so I have to thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing. And my condolences on the loss of your dog.
Thank you, dear.
So I know that's so hard.
Yeah, it is what it is, but
yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you are I'm so glad that you're doing art and working with these colors. And could Tom spotlight you again and could you hold up your piece again? We have a special request to view it. Oh, it's just fabulous. And so I just want to point out that you have the yellow, this happy, joyous color coming in from both sides. I said earlier it goes off the page, but actually you might think of it as coming into the page. And you can see that it's penetrating into the inner circle as well in two different places. So you can really spend some time having fun reading.
Yes.
You are connecting with a higher power and energy through the yellow. Okay. So that's one way to look at it. What am I? But thank you so much. And
Thanks,
be well. I can't wait to see you again soon.
Ditto.
And I'm going to have Valerie come on, and then Kim Webster, and then Juan Salazar, if we can bring in. Oh, okay. So Valerie, we don't have camera for you, but we can hear you if you unmute. And I hope that you can do that. Valerie, can you?
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
So, can you see it?
I can't see it because you don't have your camera on.
Oh, I wonder how you do that.
So on the lower left side of your screen, you should be a sort of a start
video.
Mm-hmm.
Allow. Okay. It says don't allow. Okay. Hi. So here's my work. And I normally am a very quiet person and I never share anything. But today I felt like I wanted to share. And I am a dog breeder, and I had to get them out of the room because it would be chaos in here. But I totally understand the death and the birth of animals, and how that can come across on a piece of paper. We lost 2 puppies a couple weeks ago, and it was at birth 12 hours later. And I realized that some of that darkness was coming out in my paper. You were all painting with bright colors, and this dark came on, and I just decided to go with it. And I think that's the darkness within me that, feels really sad about what happened. So that's all I have.
That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that. And that's also very important to going back to sort of the child whose mark making is different from the way that we were sort of talking about, being very round and loopy. It's like this child is working in this very sort of linear way. And then the darkness coming in when everyone's working in happy, bright, bubbly colors. And what's coming from you is sorrow and grief and pain and loss. And that needs to come through too. And to be able to allow it, to give it a space where it can exist outside of your body. It's very healing and it's very important. And we often do tell ourselves, I don't want to write about that. I don't want to use that. But if we can give ourselves a space for it to go artistically, it's best for us to do. And other people who are suffering will relate to that, and they'll connect to it. It's in some strange and magical way. So thank you, Valerie, for being great and sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now we're going to talk to Kim Webster and then Juan. And I think we have time for one more after that because we still have a few minutes. Okay, Kim's showing us it's this dynamic, like a 6-inch by 6-inch square that got magenta and turquoise and pale lime green and wonderful sort of angular, long, curved shapes. There's almost like I almost feel like I'm looking at objects that I can't quite understand. And then there's like a white cloud in the sky, if that's a sky. it's fantastic. It's so cool how you've left these shapes empty, and the other shapes are moving from intensity to mid-value to light. There's a lot of movement in tone and value as well as color. Really cool.
Thank you.
How did that feel to you to make that?
It felt good. This is a new sketchbook that I made in a bookbinding class in January or December, and I hadn't touched it. And so it's really good to put something in, because it's hard to look at I don't know, blank book and a blank page and go, I'm going to write in that beautiful thing.
I know, because that's a gorgeous book you made.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was Tyvek paper I painted with acrylics and using like plastic wrap and things like that years ago. I just found it in my stash.
Ah, God, it's gorgeous. Those colors are gorgeous. I can tell Lisa Canelio is going to want to know all about that. How did you get that purple blue? Well, thank you for sharing and breaking the white imperfection of a new sketchbook, especially one that you've made yourself and bound yourself. That's a pretty brave act, and bravo.
And thank you for inspiring me to do it. Bye.
We're gonna invite Juan in, and then after Juan, Meg. Hi, Juan. How are you?
Good morning. How's everyone today?
Can't complain.
Thanks again, Erin, for all of this great time you're spending with us, and hello to everybody, all my fellow artists in Alexandria and everything. This morning, I discovered that how my colors want to sort of get together with each other and complement each other. And so I'll kind of show you what I've been working at. First of all, I am reusing a piece of paper that a little friend of mine had started. So you can kind of see, I found that I was bringing complementary tones together.
Yeah. Orange against blue, red and green. Beautiful. I love you're working on the scale one. This is exciting. That's like a 20 by 30, 16 by 20. It looks really big from my...
Yeah, I like playing with big stuff sometimes.
Nice.
So anyway, thanks for letting me show it. And thanks for, I'll also telegraph what a couple other my fellow artists said today, that release of being able to just not care about whether you're in a line or not, sort of, it's with so many rigidities in our life. It's nice to step out of that.
This is so true what you're saying, Juan. It's the invitation of play back into the process. We get really serious and it's like, okay, let's laugh a little, come on with this human joke that we're all living, let's not be so serious. So this is a great exercise for just lightening up and having fun. And this, what you just made could be blown up onto a 20-foot by 30-foot wall and made in mosaic, it could become this incredible mural in a city that would inspire joy in everyone who walked by it. So thank you for that. And Meg, I'm going to ask you to unmute and join in. Tom's going to spotlight you and bring you into the frame. And it's good to see you again. Thank you, Juan. Okay, can you unmute?
Okay, there.
Go.
How's that?
Good.
Okay, so I got started late and I'm not even dressed and haven't really combed my hair, but a couple of things that you said really resonated. I did an angry COVID scribble.
Wow.
And it was almost slashing back and forth across the page.
Wow.
And then
yeah.
I did that yellow framing that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I just felt like I wanted to frame it with something brighter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
So anyway.
Fascinating. Turn it a different orientation so we can see it from different angles. It almost has a Harlequin-esque aspect, the costumes. that the Harlequins wear with the diamonds, and you've left a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
know,
space in there too. So there's a lot of space for change.
I haven't had a lot of practice with fading the colors in and out, you know, and like you said, bringing some pieces of light in. And so I tried working on that a little bit because dabbing with a Kleenex. Kind of.
Oh, great. That's a really nice activity to try. And the other thing you can do, and we only have a minute left, I think, but you can go back over to deepen a color after it's dried with a new wash of color.
Yeah.
I started. So
I arrived at Sea Ranch last night.
Oh, wow.
So that's my view out my living room window.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's not quite done yet. I need to put another layer on the ocean, but I wanted to wait until it dried.
Yeah, good for you. So
because all my colors were running together.
Hi, Erin, and all of your wonderful participants. I'm afraid we are close to the end of our hour again. I thank you all. You all inspire me, and I may have to pick up one of those children's kits and see what happens. I can do things with audio, with sound. Maybe I can do something else. You all are freeing my mind. Thank you so much. Erin, Tom, of course, in the background. Everyone, this has been Peggy's Place this morning on KGUA, the Friday of, in February, we have one more week, I think, of Erin Gaffel's wonderful artwork. You're such a wonderful teacher, Erin, and inspire us.